Scott, it's a pleasure to speak with you today. I wanted to start by asking you, what are the most important aspects of team building in the NFL when you set out to create a championship roster?
You know what? The thing you got to realize is, every player that you're evaluating, it doesn't matter if they're coming out of college or if they're in the NFL already as a pro free agent, they all have to play a role. And the thing that's unique about the NFL and football overall is the fact that it's not like basketball, where it's five starters and you carry 15 guys on a roster. You're carrying, you got your 53, that you have during the season going on, and maybe more now with the new CBA, depending on when it all takes place. But then you got the practice squad, but you got a lot more bodies in the NFL, so it makes it tougher to really narrow down to exactly what you want. The parameters, and each position's different too from a physical standpoint. But it's just building team. It's got to be team. It's not individual. It's team. And guys buying in. It's not about me being on ESPN and having the highlight. It's about us winning the game and being successful as a group. And I think the more and more you keep adding guys that understand it's a team atmosphere. It's about us. The better chance you have, because you're going to have hard days in the NFL. I don't care who you are. You could be a Super Bowl champion team. That year going up to that win in the Super Bowl, you had tough weeks. You had tough losses. It's going to be inevitable. And the teams that have the idea to work together, stay together in good times and bad times are the ones that usually prevail when it's said and done.
Having played such an important role in helping Seattle create a Super Bowl roster, what do you remember about those years from 2010 working with Pete Carroll and John Schneider and the players that you drafted together who went on to deliver that championship?
It's very interesting because John and I both came in the NFL together with the Green Bay Packers. And I've known John for whatever, I think 29 years now, or whatever it was, we've been in the NFL. But it was, for me, working with him was simple because we were taught the same philosophy by Ron Wolf. And we've carried it wherever he's gone, to the teams he's gone to, where I've gone to the teams I've gone to. We've always had the same philosophies about this is what it looks like. Because we were lucky enough in Green Bay to go to back-to-back Super Bowls. We won one and lost one, but we saw at a young age in the personnel side how it looks and how it worked to get to that point. And I think both of us just carried it over, and John just passed it down to everybody else that worked for him. And Pete was very, very adamant about fitting in too, because everybody has a different philosophy. And John and Pete do great together, working together, talking about, they'll disagree together, and that's fine. It's all part of it. But they have a relationship and an understanding. There's respect for each other. And once there's that up top, it just works its way down throughout the building. And that's one thing I loved in Seattle. Both my stints there, with Ted Thompson and then with John Schneider, was just the fact that it was the same philosophy I was used to. And there's a lot of communication and a lot of excitement about being at work and being part of something that you're building, and it's not easy to build a world champion. It's not at all easy, but it's fun doing it together because once you get to it, you realize how much work and effort it took, but everybody gets credit for it. It's not the GM. It's not the college director, pro director. It's not the area scout. It's everybody together. And same thing as building a championship team with the players. It's us. It's we're going to have good days and bad days. We're going to have good drafts and bad drafts, good picks, bad picks. But let's make sure we have more good than bad involved in this building or on this team.
Now that Seahawks Super Bowl roster was really bolstered by tough, gritty, talented players that were found later in the draft. Is there a type of character that you're looking for in those later rounds that gives you the best possible opportunity to find a diamond in the rough?
Usually the way you approach it is, everybody knows usually the first 3 or 4 rounds are going to know kind of an idea who should go and who's going to go. Sometimes the medical plays into or background plays into or they don't go, but you get a pretty good idea. I think it's a good scouting staffs that really trust their area scouts that hit on guys in the later rounds because they're not the popular guys. They're not the ones that every team's talking about or every scout's talking about. They're the guys that are on the back burner. Even you go to universities. You say you go to Georgia, they got 4 really, really good prospects. They're going to be taken in the first 4 rounds. Everybody knows it. Okay. But heck, they're going to have 3 guys that are taken in the 5th, 6th, or 7th or signed as a college free agent that are kind of no names. The ESPN doesn't talk about it. NFL Network doesn't talk about them. They're just kind of back burner guys. But the good area scout who's following those guys throughout their college career realized, hey, there's a value here. And what's the value? Is it his height? Is it his weight? Is it speed, athleticism? Or, the one thing we always call it is inner fortitude. What's inside them? What makes them tick? What makes them having a bad day turn into a good day? What's them from being good become great, from great to becoming phenomenal? What's in their body that push them an extra step? And once you start identifying those guys, it doesn't have to be the biggest, fastest, strongest whatsoever. But if you give me one really good athlete, okay, great. For one play, son of a gun, look how fast he is, look how high he jumps. But you give me 6 guys for a game, I'm going to win with those 6 guys throughout a game. If maybe lose one play, but I'm going to win more plays than I lose because I got 6 guys working together to have that it factor to understand they can't do it alone. I need help to my left, help to my right, and we work together. We're going to, as a group, we're going to be successful.
How much do you enjoy that aspect of the scouting process, John, that ability to get to know these players? You've seen them on tape, then you really get to meet them, speak to them, and learn about them as characters.
You know what? It's a great time, because you can never figure out a player 100%. You think you can, you want to try, and you do try, but you never do. But the more you get around them, the more you get to sit face to face, the more you get to shake their hand, look them eye to eye, the more you get to know about their family, their friends, what makes them happy, what don't they like, what's their hobbies, what don't they like to do. It's cool because every individual is different, everyone. And, you always hear about some of the bad apples out there, and that's inevitable. You get players in the NFL and in college. But the majority, I would say 90% at least of the players I came across in my 28, 29 years, whatever it is, have been phenomenal people, and they're the type of guys you have fun just sitting talking to because you look forward to it because it's going to be a good conversation. And you think about it, you're like, what's great about this guy? First of all, he's 21, 22, 23, whatever he is. When you sit down, you get done interviewing him and kind of get to know him, you realize that they don't need football in their life to be successful. They're going to be successful no matter what they try to do because they're just classy individuals, that are mature and have good understanding of what life's about, And I think if you go through and look at majority of the really good players, the Hall of Fame players, the going to be Hall of Fame players, a lot of those guys are that way. They're just fun to be around. They got a smile on their face. They send off an energy with their body language and the way their body describes them, and the eye contact and all that. That they're confident, but they're not overconfident. Are they proud who they are? Yes, they are. Are they mature and understand what life's about and what it takes to be successful in life? Yes, they do. So it's a great process. It's a long process. It's a very tedious process. I always enjoy doing it. Sometimes you find out things you don't want to find out, but that's life. And you're dealing with so many players each year that you're going to come across situations, and there's certain guys you pull for more so than other guys because they've had a tougher upbringing or stuff like that. But it's a great process. I always enjoyed it.
One of the things I really wanted to ask you about is what draft day is actually like. Because I think those of us on the outside would just be fascinated to learn what that day, the first round beginning, what that day is like for a GM, for a scouting director, for a personnel executive. Could you just give us a bit of insight into that day, as how it unfolds leading up to the first team being on the clock and then throughout that first round process?
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about it is, and again, like I said, I've always been in the same kind of setup mode once the season ends, the regular season in college, and then getting ready for the All-Star games, getting ready for the combine, getting ready for the pro days, getting ready for the draft. I've always been through the same process. So, I can't speak on other teams' ways they handle their stuff when they have their meetings. Are they earlier? Are they later? Do they wait closer to the draft or further from the draft or medical or whatever? So I always had the same way. So it was always very comfortable for me. But honestly, by the time the draft day gets there, you're so over-prepared, it's not even funny. You could have done the draft probably at least a month before, at least. because then if you're just sitting there and you're waiting, and then all these rumors are coming out about so-and-so's running this fast, or so-and-so got hurt, or so-and-so got arrested, and a lot of them are just fake rumors. But, once the draft day gets there, it's not hustle and bustle and running around. Here we go. Yay. No, it's like, thank goodness. Let's get this son of a gun over with. I want mini camp to start. I want to start doing football stuff with football pads on, not with T-shirt and shorts and measure and sticks to see how far they jump or how high they jump. No, let's do football stuff. Let's tackle people. Let's throw the football. Let's score touchdowns. Let's kick field goals. You're just waiting for it. So from my standpoint, the only time you have any kind of maybe a little bit of, not pressure, but a little bit rush to you is if you're making a trade while you're on the clock. But even that's not hard to do. It sounds like a lot of moving parts, but it's not. It's one GM/owner or head coach making a trade with another GM/owner, head coach. It's both agreeing to the trade, calling into the league office, both telling whoever the main person that day on the phone is about the trade, and it's done. You can all be done in 30 seconds, So it's not as, the TV, which they should, they try to make it look really exciting, coming down, we only got 15 seconds left. I'll never forget my first year in San Fran, 2005, we had the first pick overall. That was my first year as a GM. And, I was 34 years old, and I was going to show everybody, I'm young, but I'm ready. I'm prepared. I have the first pick in the draft here. When the clock starts, I'm turning the card in right away. Boom. Whoever has the second pick in the draft's on the clock. Well, I tell the league office that. I get a call from Roger Goodell. He's like, you can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean? He says you can't turn in that fast. He says you can if you want. We're not going to announce it till 14:30 into it, because at that time you have 15 minutes in the first round. He says we got way too many. We got advertisements and stuff to show about your pick before we're going to announce it. I'm like, wow. See, because I was young, I didn't know about all the politics involved and all that. He says, oh, no, you can't turn it in right away. You can turn it in. We're not going to announce it. We're not going to announce it until we have the whole time allotment to do our advertisements, the people that paid for it, and then have our NFL Network and ESPN have their highlights. And I was like, wow, come on, it's just the draft. Let's ready for the next pick, but it didn't work that way. So there's a lot of sitting and waiting, to tell you the truth, a lot of sitting and waiting. I hate to say that because I'm sure a lot of people want to hear fist fights and screaming at each other and tackling each other about who's turning what name in. It's not that way at all. There's one voice. It's usually the GM. There's some discussions, depending who got drafted before, or if you got three guys you kind of like, and they're all three there, you already have that figured out. This is A, this is B, and this is C. So if A's there, we're going with A. If A's gone, we're going with B. If B's gone, we're going with C. So it's all laid out. Like I said, you've done so much work. You've done overkill. Too much thinking. In football, you do too much thinking, you're in trouble because not enough smart people that do too much thinking. like me. Just walk in, get it done, walk out, let's get ready, let's play some football.
Sounds good to me. Now, I just wondered, how much has scouting changed much in the last couple of decades? I mean, how has college football maybe impacted the NFL and thus changed the way, if at all, the way that teams have scouted?
Well, the thing about it's very unique. I think the teams that you've seen, over our generations, who've been consistently been successful, they haven't changed much from the standpoint of the way they scout. They're still scouting tape. They're scouting football players. There's very important character. It's very important leadership qualities, work ethic, the intangibles you look for in quality individuals in any phase of business throughout, America. Doesn't matter. Football could be, CEO of Kmart or wherever you're at. They're all, I think the teams that stay consistent and have success are the ones that stay with that. The teams that have up and down, not just years, but decades, are the ones that think they need to adjust, need to keep trying to change the game. You don't need to change the game. The game's a game for a reason. It's been very, very successful for a reason. Now, there's different styles, and there's different schemes, and there's going to be different trends always, and that's the way it works. You got 32 teams, you got a lot of players, you got a lot of different coaching philosophies, but it's still, you got to keep it simple because it's a simple game. You know, you can describe it however you want to describe it about, you know, you got D coordinator doing this. That's fine. You still got 11 versus 11. What 11 are going to be successful, be more consistent throughout a game, are going to win the game. Have less turnovers, less mistakes, are going to win the game. You know, but from that standpoint, the scouting speed hasn't changed. The standpoint of the game itself has changed because, like I said, about the systems. You know, if I got in this thing, you always ran the ball to set up the pass, always. And that was for decades. I mean, that's going way back to Super Bowl I. You know, now each year and each decade we go through this, it goes into people are starting to throw the ball to set up the run. You know, it's totally opposite. And, you know, who would ever thought, you know, 10, 15, probably 12, 15 years ago, a team wouldn't carry a fullback on the entire roster. Like, what? No fullback? You have to. He blocks for the running back. You know, nowadays they don't even have fullbacks. I mean, it's like a dinosaur. You know, it's very unique. So, you know, but you got to be able to stick with it because high school is playing spread offense, colleges is playing spread offense, NFL is going to spread offense because that's what the quarterbacks know. And that's the most important person on the field. And you want to put them in a situation, an environment that they're comfortable in because that's the only way they're going to have the most success. So you get these good coordinators, these young ones are adjusting. You know, the NFL's adjusting to them because they're going to run the spread to a point. You know, you still got to be careful because of the amount of hits on the quarterback and you're going one back sets and you're not going to have an extra blocker and that kind of stuff. But they're also using it, and I think you see with the Ravens, you know, and with a very successful quarterback who runs the system perfectly, you know. But it'll change as the game always is changing. Is it going to change in 2 or 3 years? Probably not. But maybe in 6 or 7 years, it'll be back to a drop back. You know, 5-7 step drop back quarterbacks who are pocket passers. Who knows? You know, so that's the thing you got to keep adjusting with. Because if you draft somebody, you can't draft them and force them to fit your system. You got to draft them knowing how they're going to fit the system or how you're going to adjust your system to fit the best players on your team, offense, defense, or special teams.
I wanted to finish, Scott, by asking you a couple of topical questions. What kind of challenges are presented this year due to the way that the coronavirus is impacting the draft?
Well, it's just gigantic because, you know, like I said, I've been doing this 28 years. So you get set in your ways, and each year, you know which month, which time of each month, what's going on in the NFL because it always stays the same. And the NFL is a creature habit, big time. You know, so you knew this time of the year right now, it's all pro days. It's all 30 visits coming in pro days, plain and simple. And your area scouts are out on the road going nonstop. You know, the people in the building are bringing, like I said, the 30 guys in either for physicals, for sit-down interviews, for a full day entourage, lunch, dinners, which coach is meeting with them, all that stuff. You know, now none of that's happening. None of it's happening. You know, that's why people are sitting around and they don't know what to do because they're so used to being busy right now and finding those 5th, 6th, 7th diamond and rough guys at pro days. You know, going to Georgia, I'm not worried about the top 4 or 5 guys. Give me the last 4 or 5 guys after them because those are the ones that are going to be available late in the rounds or as free agents. That do we want to sign them or not? That's when the area scout has to step up. But this year, there's none of those. And not being able to bring, you know, you always had a handful of guys that were non-combine guys, meaning they weren't invited to the combine, that you have draftable on your draft board. Well, I was always taught they're on your draft board, you have to have a hard medical grade on them, meaning one NFL team had to put their hands on them, their doctors alone, and give him a hard grade. Otherwise, it's a soft grade, meaning it came from the university, and it could come from the trainer, which you can't trust. I mean, you'd love to say you can, and sometimes I'm sure you can, but you can't trust it because it's not one of the NFL doctors. So, you know, those guys that can't come in for the visits now who are non-combine guys to get physicals, some teams will take them off the draft board because they can't draft them because they don't know the medical grade. They might have a broken neck. They don't know that. They probably don't, but you don't know for sure. So you can't waste a draft pick on a guy like that. And that's what's going to kill the kids this year that were non-combine guys, because teams are like, well, is he healthy? Well, we think he is. Okay, well, we think's not good enough. If we're going to draft a guy and invest invest a draft pick in him and money in him, because we draft him, we got to give him a signing bonus. And I'm not giving a signing bonus to a player if we don't know he's even going to play for us. We don't know his medical grade. So that's the thing that's bad about it, because it's bad for the kids, it's bad for the university, it's bad for the NFL, in my opinion. I think they should have moved it back, and gave teams more time to get the pro days, get this virus thing out of the way, bring kids in to visit at the organizations, because then it gives the organization a better chance to make the right decision for them. It gives the kids a better chance to make the right decision if they're being recruited as a free agent, college free agent type guy. What team he's got a coach that he really fell in love with, that he likes a lot. That's at this team compared to the other team. So he tells his agent that. All that stuff you get all that stuff done this time of the year. But with the virus thing happening and everything being shut down, it's not happening. So you're going in with a lot less information than you had in the past. And it's going to show up. There'll be more mistakes made this year. And of course, it's not exact science out of the get-go. It's not exact science whatsoever. But this year, there's going to be a lot more chances being taken than in the past.
One of the big talking points at the moment is the difficulty of undrafted free agency immediately after the draft. Are you a fan of the proposal which is doing the rounds in the minute, which would be to extend the draft this year by, say, 3 more rounds to ease the burden there?
I would, back in the day, that's the way it was. I mean, it used to go on for a while. I mean, it used to go 14 rounds and stuff, and like the baseball draft, it goes on to one team that they decide to stop picking, with football. Because what you're doing, if you extend the draft, all you're doing is helping the organizations out, because what you're doing now, the 7th round, you have the 7th round, okay? You're in the 7th round, you got one pick, okay? Say you're picking in the middle of the 7th round, okay? So that's your last pick. When we get close to that pick, you're already recruiting the kids for free agency, college free agency. So you're calling a kid, and there's 15 to 20 picks left in the 7th round. But your team's done picking, okay? You're already calling kids saying, listen, okay, if you don't get drafted, you're our number one priority as a free agent, college free agent, okay? Well, the kid doesn't want to hear that, first of all, because he's waiting for the phone to ring to be said he is drafted. So the kid's like, okay, well, that's fine, whatever. To talk to my agent. So then it starts getting confused. The kid gets confused. The agents get confused. And it's if you extended the draft, you'd have less of that. But you're still going to have it no matter what when you get to free agency, because it's a crapshoot. It's a wide open, hell's bells. Agents talking to 6 teams. You got to make a decision in 5 minutes. He's talking to the kid. So it's very chaotic. But I'm all for extending it. I'm all for doing what's better for the players, because you're going to sign probably at least 8 of 12 college free agents after the draft, depending on what your numbers are in your roster and what positions and all that. But you're going to sign those guys. So instead of signing that many free agents, you draft 3, and that dropped 3 guys less that you have to fight for free agency. You just draft them in the 8th, 9th, 10th round, and they know where they're going. The team knows they got them. And then I think that would help with free agency when said and done, just from the standpoint of the amount of numbers that people are chasing.
Scott, thanks so much for your time today. It's been a privilege to speak to you, and it is much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.